as we're seeing more and more Americans traveling to Europe, we're actually catching wind of more experiences and wild things, particularly some WTF moments. A lot of things that are pretty uncomfortable, or things that they honestly prefer over being in the United States, or things that they had a little bit of a hard time adjusting to. I mean, I even share my experiences I've had in Europe myself. I mean, at this point, probably the only experiences I've had in Europe have been related to Germany primarily, and you guys have seen that all over my channel. Now, I'm not gonna lie, for a while I thought I was alone in these experiences, going out there and having a little bit of a culture shock and a meltdown almost in some situations, but I came across a thread in Reddit that showed a lot of Americans commenting under a particular post that highlighted the biggest WTF moments that they had in Europe. And there's also the reverse as well, but in this particular video, we're just covering wild experiences Americans have had in Europe. Now, if you've witnessed these uncomfortable experiences in 4K, please let me know in the comments down below. Or even if you have an experience of your own where you traveled to the United States and had some very interesting WTF moments, let me know in the comments down below, because I would love to read what you guys have to say. But before we get started, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Our first comment's pretty interesting, as it says, had a positive what the moment in Greece in the Eastern Peloponnese, where I saw a guy walk down to the end of a pier and throw an actual trident into the Aegean and pull out a wriggling octopus. Dude walked up the beach and handed it over the deck railing to a chef. That honestly sounds like some modern day Greek mythology. I mean, oh my God. I don't even know how I would react if I saw something like that myself. Just walking down, minding my own business and seeing some guy pulling out a trident. And it's like, hey, hold on. I got that octopus for you. Boom, 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 boom. Now, honestly, I have no idea what tridents are used for. I mean, I've only seen them in Greek mythology. I've never seen them used practically in real life. So if they are used to catch octopi, let me know in the comments down below. Also, is that how you say octopus plural? Because I don't know. Anyways, that is a hilarious story. I would definitely be shooketh, and that would be one to take to the bar. Let me know what you guys think about that. Our next comment says, spent a summer in Germany. They had the cleanest, safest, best tasting tap water, but nobody drank it and they called it toilet water. Also, the older people in villages seemed super grumpy and mean. I would never smile or respond if you said hello or good morning. But if you asked them a substantive question like how to get to the museum, they would spend 15 minutes telling you the fastest way to get there, the scenic way to get there, everything interesting you should do on the way there, why that museum isn't actually that good and you should go to this other museum instead, all of the different ways to get to the better museum and where their grandmother used to live before the war. I think this is a very good example of the small talk trope that we keep hearing about between the United States and Europe as a whole, specifically when we dive into comparisons related to Germany, right? Now, I got to experience this myself, and I knew about this prior to traveling, so my experience was definitely very different than other people who have traveled. I did hear that, of course, small talk isn't really appreciated, right? Don't waste people's time. Like, if you're trying to accomplish something, then accomplish that thing and move on, or just don't talk to people at all. Now, it's very interesting, and it's a contrasting ideology to have when you look at the United States. People's mentality is, hey, if we're going to have an interaction with a random passerby, might as well have a good interaction. So maybe sparking up some small talk like, hey, what's up? How's your day? Blah, blah, blah. You have like a meaningless small conversation, but it's positive, so it doesn't really do anything in a negative aspect to your day and bring you down or whatever. And you go about your day with a smile on your face. For instance, one thing I brought up in a video a while back was people giving unsolicited compliments. Not weird compliments, but just like, oh, wow, I really like your shirt. Let's say you're walking down the street, right? And you're wearing a cool shirt and someone across the street's like, yo, I really like your shirt. Have a nice day. And you're like, oh, thanks? Did that or did that not make your day a little bit better? It's just a compliment. No harm to it. Nothing weird. No weird catcalling compliments, but I'm just saying genuine compliments that just make your day that much better. If you're having a bad day at work, or maybe you're having some problems at home or something like that, well, you know, a little compliment goes a long way. So I think that's the perk of having small talk in the United States versus the lack thereof in Europe. So in this, it's actually interesting because you can see the dynamic change when he asked a specific question and got a very thorough answer, because that's something I also experienced. If it was a situation where I sparked up a small talk conversation, it ended abruptly. People were not even trying to engage. They would walk away, understandably so after what I just said. But if I asked something that had some substance involved, like, hey, what is the best thing I can do in this town that many tourists don't know about? Then, oh my gosh, you would have 3 Harry Potter books worth of speech from the person that you're talking to about where you should go, why you should go to that location, and why this location is better than the other location, kind of like this person mentioned. So basically, I feel like the trick, the strategy, right, the workaround, if you're trying to make friends with people, if you're trying to get people to engage with you a little bit more, specifically in Germany, I think asking questions that are practical would actually garner you a much more extensive response. And who knows, maybe just maybe, you might find a new friend. Because the thing is, I think there's tiers to small talk, right? There's like the real quick passerby small talk, and then there's the small talk where you're having a conversation for a while with a random person on the street that you just met and you never talk again. And I think that's kind of the number one prospect that a lot of people are afraid of, because it's like, oh, I do want to tell you how my day actually was, but I don't want this to not go anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, this got to lead to a friendship or a gathering or something. So let me know in the comments down below if that's common or not and what your experiences were with that. But our next comment says, one time in Rome, it started pouring. As I sought shelter, I saw an older man selling one single umbrella. Strange as it was, I needed that umbrella, so I haggled him and settled on €3. He had the upper hand in that transaction. I wandered over to a coffee shop to dry out for a little bit. When I go to leave, the umbrella is no longer in the bucket by the door. Upset at myself for being so trusting, I head into the rain again. Guess who I see? The same old man selling the same umbrella. I try to confront him about stealing back my umbrella, but he claims not to remember our interaction at all. It's pouring and I have a number of miles to walk, so I go through the same charade with him again to re-procure the umbrella. At least this time, he took €2. No, sir, he took a total of €5 from you. Okay, you got finessed. And I actually have several stories of getting finessed myself. Now, that is one thing that I do think is pretty common throughout Europe and, in the United States, but you hear about it more so throughout Europe, right? I've been recently seeing an uptick in videos from YouTubers, TikTokers, what have you, influencers that are exposing the scam scene throughout Europe, specifically Paris, France, and Rome, Italy. You have a multitude of different types of scammers that will run various things. They'll have you play a game that's rigged. They'll sell you an item by disguising it as a gift, and then they'll request the donation of any amount, like, oh, like, here's this bracelet that I made or something. Here you go. Like, you look like you need it. And you grab it. You're like, oh, thanks. And you're about to walk off like, hey, hold on before you leave. I'm struggling and stuff like that. Any donation would be great. And then you're like, I don't have any money, but thank you for the bracelet. And you leave. They get hostile AF. Now, pickpockets are another thing I've heard of as well out there, but just relating to this specific example of people being haggled and hassled, this is something that I think happens in every country where the locals are like, we have some international people coming in. They don't understand the rules, regulations, whatever. I can kind of finesse them a little bit. And I have an experience here in Korea. I was here in Korea and I basically went to go exchange some money because I have to go pay for my rent in cash. It's a long story, but I go to this currency exchange like I did all the time, right? And this particular currency exchange I went to was a little bit newer. And so typically I would pull out like $1,000 cash USD. I would go to the currency exchange and then they would convert it to Korean won. And I would get the Korean won and pay my realtor. No harm, no foul. This particular time, for some strange reason, I decided to go through a different currency exchange. And I get there, I give them the $1,000 like I always do, except this time it's a different place. So it's a little different, but similar process. Gave them the money. They go to count the amount of bills that I gave them. And I noticed when they put the money in the counter, it took off probably $400. And I was like, wait a minute. What's going on here? So they give me the conversion rate for what would have been $600 and not the $1,000 I gave them. And I'm like, hey, what about my $400? You guys are scamming me. I know my $400 is right there. Your machine only counted $600 and you're $400 shy. Where's my money? And they're like, oh, commission. I'm like, commission? $400 commission? And I found out that particular currency exchange ran a horrible business. First of all, you as an individual can't track how much cash you have on you and report it to the authorities. They don't know if that cash is attached to you unless you know every single serial number on those bills, right? So I was screwed. I couldn't make a big deal about it. I couldn't jump over the counter and snatch my little $400 back. Crazy thing is I just said little $400 back. It was a gut punch. That was a life lesson I learned. Basically, go through trusted individuals and definitely learn how to bring somebody that is a local with so you don't get finessed like that. I knew I was getting finessed in the moment, but I didn't know what to do. I tried talking to the local police. They couldn't do anything about it. I mean, all they could do is talk to the people at the store, but then they said I was making up some bullshit. Long story short, have a very clear understanding of how things work in the place you're about to travel to before you get there. And when it comes to markets and stuff, you're going to have to understand the bargaining game. But anyways, we have another comment to look at, and it says, going to a soccer game in Italy. When buying a ticket, they needed to know which team I was rooting for to determine where I could sit. Then during the game, people were setting things on fire. Okay, so before I get absolutely scorched in the comment section, I'll go ahead and say football. So at the football games I would go to in Germany specifically, it was insane. Like any kind of hostility that you didn't see out in the street or in public, you would see during those games. People are pretty passionate about the teams that they're representing. And you know, you mix passion with alcohol and you get chaos. Okay, so yeah, people do have flares and all kind of fiery things, and the fights get kind of diabolical depending on the game and the rivalry and whatnot. That's normal. It's scary sometimes, but it's normal. That experience in Italy sounds exactly like the experiences I've had in Germany and stuff like that, which by the way, in general, throughout all of Europe, what are some soccer games, what are some football games I can go to that you would think would be worthwhile, right? Like really awesome experiences, because I do know that the one thing that is wildly different in Europe over America is the ultras, like the football ultras. So you'll see a lot of different countries like in the stands representing their teams, and they go absolutely ballistic. They wear color coordinated things, and they form these cool designs in the stands, and they have like super elaborate flags and all kind of craziness, right? And chants as well. And it's really cool. It's super hype. And again, they have flares, fire, all kind of craziness and whatnot. So what games or what teams should I look into and track to make sure that I go to one of those games at least once in Europe? Let me know in the comments. Late to the thread, but here goes. Went to Sweden on a vacation package. Stayed at a wonderful historic hotel for part of the trip that had a restaurant inside of it. Part of our package called for a free dinner at the hotel, and we had asked that it be the night we arrived. We arrived and got settled into our rooms and then went to check out the restaurant. As soon as we walked in, there was no one there, only a hostess. She immediately said that they were expecting us and we could sit anywhere. There was no one else in this gorgeous, ornate restaurant. A waiter came out and said that they had prepared a special meal for us. We asked why it was so empty, and he said that the restaurant was closed one day a week, and today was that day. We were shocked and apologized profusely and told him that we had booked through another company and would have just scheduled it for another day. He said it was no problem, and we had some free extras such as wine and dessert. The main course ended up being a huge piece of meat, which we jokingly said must have been because we were big fat Americans. No one rushed us. We had a great time, and after we left, they closed the restaurant for the night. It was a total what the fuck moment, because if you booked something like this in America, they'd either force you to reschedule or just have the restaurant closed with no explanation. I think that's one of the coolest things about Europe, and that I've heard consistently throughout all the countries within it, or most of the countries within it, and people who have traveled to those countries respectively. I think that the way restaurants handle customers is really awesome. Now, customer service might vary depending on where you go, but generally speaking, the one cool thing I do like is that you can genuinely just sit down and enjoy your food. Now, in this particular situation, this was interesting because they booked through a third-party agency. They arrived to go enjoy themselves at this restaurant, and unfortunately, the restaurant was technically closed. They had a hostess there, and it was really cool and considerate that they still served this family, even though the restaurant was traditionally closed on that particular day. So the fact that like not only did this family get to still eat at this restaurant, but they got extra provisions as well is absolutely insane. Now, I'm not sure if this is normal, if something like this were to pop up, because I could imagine in any other situation, no matter where you are, if that restaurant is closed one day out of the week and you happen to book through a third-party agency that exact particular day of the week, the second you get there, the restaurant's just going to be closed. It'll just have a "sorry, we're closed" sign or something of the sort on there, because I don't ever really see or like any rhyme or reason why they would actually make accommodations for people who made the reservation on that day, even if they did not know that that was the particular day that said restaurant was supposed to be closed. So that was really cool and pretty considerate. And I would have absolutely been mind blown too, because listen, in America, hell or high water, if the restaurant is closed, it is closed. They make zero exceptions. If your booking agency booked you at a specific time and day and you land and you try to get in that restaurant, no matter how much money you pay, they won't give you an explanation and they will not open up that restaurant for you. Now, it depends on the area that you're in America, because there are some small mom and pop restaurants that can make some exceptions depending on their availability. But again, it's very rare. It's super, super rare. An experience like that's pretty cool. A really cool positive WTF moment. Now let's see if this next one matches this same energy. When I visited Prague and water cost 2 crowns and beer cost 1. It's because they don't want you making responsible decisions out there. It's actually pretty cool because I've seen that a lot actually. Depending on where you go, sometimes the beer and alcohol is cheaper than the water itself, where I'm like, oh my gosh. Now again, I live in Korea and that is the case for a lot of things. If you go out to a bar, a lot of times the alcohol is cheaper than the water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's crazy because, you know, people do be making some real questionable decisions and it's typically influenced by the consumption of alcohol. So I can't blame them. Also, it's probably just cheaper in a way to drink alcohol over water, which is a crazy statement as I'm saying that, because I would think by default water would astronomically cheaper than beer or any other kind of alcohol. But I don't know. If you guys are watching this video, let me know in the comments down below if the country you're from, beer or any kind of alcohol is more expensive or less expensive than water. Some of the layovers I've had through random countries in Europe and whatnot, you know, France included, the water was phenomenal. I loved it. I drank the tap water and I was thoroughly surprised. Don't ask me why I was drinking the tap water. I was thirsty. Okay, I was thirsty and I did not feel like going to buy bottled water that cost €9 for a tiny little bottle. So I drank out of the faucet and I was pleasantly surprised. It's like I found gold or something. It was amazing. So all that to say, I was genuinely shocked because I do hear a lot of people complaining about, oh, well, our water is good, but why would you want to drink that? Drink some sparkling water or something that'll quench your thirst for real. Like, don't drink that toilet water. I'm like, dude, your water tastes amazing. I can bottle your sink water and sell it in the States and be a multi-gorillionaire. Every meal in Paris taking 3 hours. I love the culture and I'm all about eating a relaxing meal, but it sometimes was just like, what the fuck? When we were on a schedule and had to meet up with a tour group or had reservations or for something, trying to get your bill when you're in a hurry, impossible. So remember earlier in this video, I told you any experience I've had in Europe, I can only really attest to Germany because that's the one place I've gone to over and over and over again. Well, this person's in Paris, right? And I can relate a few of my experiences to this. Now it's a little different, but similar. So I mentioned earlier in this video as well that I absolutely appreciate that for the most part, wherever you go to sit and dine in, you can take your time. It's awesome. It's relaxing because I do remember when I was younger, I would go to these restaurants and stuff with friends and we would just talk for hours, almost damn near until closing, and people would not be too happy about it. Not the fact that we were talking, but the fact that we were there so long. Like we would always have servers walk by the table and ask us if we would like the bill, if everything was okay, if we would like anything else to eat or drink, almost low key pushing us out of the restaurant. Mind you, we would leave tips and stuff. We would definitely eat all of our food, but we just wanted to sit and relax and let our food digest a little bit before we got up and leave. So it's not common in the United States for people to have time to just sit and enjoy their food. They can sit and eat their food and that's different, but sitting and enjoying your food and having a cool conversation and whatever, there's a time limit for that. So in Europe, generally the vibe is you can sit down, you can enjoy your food, have an amazing conversation, stay there for hours upon hours upon hours. But the caveat, and I got to find that out myself, is it's hard to ask for the bill. Now, it wasn't that I did not know how to ask for the bill in German, because I definitely know how to do that. It was just getting the server's attention, because it's not like the United States where you have the servers constantly hawking your table and asking you every 2 to 3 minutes ingredients if everything's okay, because that can get annoying, and I do get that. But it's like the total opposite in Europe. Like, you see the server at the beginning and possibly at the end, but at the end you have to literally like go out of your way to like get their attention and stuff, like, hey, you know. So if you can't find them, you'll be there for an additional 30 minutes to an hour plus trying to get the bill, which was interesting. I didn't think it was a bad thing, but I think it definitely was an interesting WTF moment. I'm like, what the fuck? Now listen, I think a nice workaround for that, right? Because Korea does stuff like that, but they figured it out. Listen, South Korea to me is the ultimate introvert's paradise, is what I call it, right? You go into the restaurant, there's a button on the table when you want service, and you press that button when you want the server to come by and give you the bill, because a lot of places in South Korea have tablets, and you just order off the tablet and stuff. You hit order, whatever that stuff is, and then the waitress or waiter comes by, gives you your food, and they walk away. When it's time to pay, you press that button, they come up to you, they drop off your check, and you pay. It's super simple. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like there's some countries out there that could use this. Let me know in the comments down below if they're like what the restaurant etiquette is like and what you can and can't do in those restaurants. Can you actually sit down and have a full-fledged conversation, eat your food and enjoy yourself and stay there as long as you like? Or is it more like sit down, eat, and get the hell out? I was a military brat living in Belgium when I saw a commercial on AFN, Armed Forces Network, that gave new arrivals to Europe a quick rundown of things. The one thing I learned and that stuck with me is no right turn on red. I just made a video. I think it was my last video I just made on some driving experiences Americans have had in Europe, right? One thing I failed to mention was that I defaulted while I was driving in Germany, and I almost every time would turn right on red. And I think the friends I was riding with, they were on the edge of their seats. That'll never happen again, hopefully. But yes, no right on red. Do not turn right on red. If it is red, it is red. And if you don't want to get chased down by the local authorities, do not turn right on red, okay? It was subtle at first, but it eventually boggled my mind how old everything was, and it was still integrated into everyday life. Like in the UK, drinking in the pub that had been in the same spot since the 11th century, or eating dinner at a restaurant in an 18th cathedral, or in Prague, going to a club in a 14th century stone cellar, or staying at a hotel or brewery that had been operating since the 15th century. The oldest building in my vicinity is from the 1750s, which is prehistoric by US standards, but like someone in Europe sees a building that's half a millennia old that no one is using, and they're like, let's turn this into a disco. I loved it. Edit. Decided to do some quick research for perspective. The oldest surviving Native American structure in the US dates to 750 AD. The oldest structure from Spanish colonists is from 1521. The oldest structure from English colonists is from 1637. My experience in Germany definitely reflected this. I went out there and I was super mind blown with how old everything was in various areas and whatnot. And since Germany has been, you know, bombed to oblivion in some places, it was also interesting looking at the architecture and how nuanced it was. You know, like half the city would look brand new because it was, you know, recently built, and then the other half would look ancient. And I'm like, oh my gosh, actually, where would the oldest building in your particular country be? Let me know in the comments down below. And actually, what is the coolest, oldest structure that you've seen throughout Europe? Maybe just in your country within Europe. Let me know in the comments, because I definitely will be looking at those and making some time to visit some of them next year when I come back. I lived in Germany for 8 years from 1992 to 2000, ages 4 to 14. I didn't realize it until I moved back to the States, but there were recycling bins on every street corner. It wasn't just a green bin, then a trash can. It was a giant blue bin. One section for green glass, one for brown glass, one for clear glass, one for plastic, and one for paper. Oh, and going to a German school, students took public transit. There wasn't such thing as a school bus. Edit. Public transit as in city buses and trains. The students weren't segregated into their own modes of transportation. After doing these videos for a little bit, I've actually realized how uncommon it is for other countries to have a separate mode of transportation for students. And I thought that in itself was definitely weird, but I can understand the recycling thing being a huge WTF moment too, because I'm not gonna lie, this very last trip that I had to Germany, it was a camper tour, right? I was trying to see as much of Germany as I could within the 2 weeks I was there. I definitely bit off more than I could chew, but we visited about 14 different cities, and by the end of the trip, the vans were a wreck. I'm not gonna lie, they were a wreck, and I had to clean them out. And as I cleaned them out, I was very perplexed because I'm like, okay, what qualifies as waste trash? What qualifies as cardboard trash? Now, I understood the plastic stuff, glass stuff, that made sense, but it always gets me no matter what country I'm in, because Korea has the same thing where you have to separate your trash and stuff. Like if I have a greasy burger, right, and it's in a cardboard box, and the grease is just soaking up this cardboard box, right, the little cardboard thing that it's being held in, do you put that with the cardboard recycling or do you put that with the waste? Because there's food gunked all over it. The bottom line is I was thoroughly confused even still after having visited Germany plenty of times, not enough times, but definitely plenty of times to have had thorough experiences. And I'm like, man, how do you organize this? The modes of transportation, right? Riding the school bus. I think that might be exclusively an American thing. Now, there might be other places that are kind of like that. In South Korea, they do have their own separate modes of transportation as well for school in some cases, but a lot of times kids do take the public transit to get to and from school. Now, I did that as well. I did both, right? When I was little, I took the bus, the regular school bus to school and from school, you know what I mean? But then as I got older, I wound up taking the public transportation in Chicago. Now, I will say public transportation in Chicago is the best in the United States, and I stand by that. Yes, even better than New York City. Fight me. Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. It was a little confusing and perplexing for me when I thought about it, but I guess having been through a similar experience myself where I got to use student exclusive transportation and then public transportation, it's more understandable, I guess, in my situation. But I can understand the confusion and the WTF aspect of everything. In Amsterdam, I saw a guy get jacked in the head with a bottle, take 2 steps back, and then pass out. All his friends scattered. Then the 2 old men shop owners were like, LOL, kids, am I right? All right. Now, while this is shocking, I will say, you've heard maybe too many times of the wild experiences I've had in the United States and various states, not just Chicago, because I have a lot of interesting stories in just Chicago alone, but other places as well. And the common denominator is guns, okay? There are guns in situations where there should not be guns. Now, how does that relate to what we just talked about? Well, somebody got bonked on the head with a glass bottle and passed out, right? Kids being kids. People in America being shocked that somebody got bonked on the head with a glass bottle that shattered, they got knocked out. Is it crazy? Is it shocking? Yes. Any kind of sense of, someone getting hurt is crazy and shocking. But if we're being so honest, it's more regular in the United States and a far more extreme. You damn near need to have a bulletproof vest wherever you go. I mean, we've seen just this year alone, just in the last few months, we've had mass shootings out the wazoo, and that's normal. School shootings now are not surprising. Like every time they happen, like, oh, another school shooting, and the birds are chirping and the grass is growing and another school shooting over there. Oh, wow. Normal day in American paradise. So I'm just saying, yeah, that's shocking. And it's not a pissing contest. It's just, I do think it's weird that was the what the fuck moment for somebody traveling from the United States to Europe and whatnot. We clearly have incidences that are far, far more extreme. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the rest of the world isn't violent at all. I will say this. There was one particular time, and these are always situations where I get super paranoid, right? I was out with some friends and I was a lot younger, right? We're out at night and we had been drinking. Now, I did not know one of my friends was armed. And I guess we had just left this party and stuff and we're all like laughing and giggling hysterically, whatever. One of my friends decided to pull out his gun while he's laughing and shoot in the air, just straight up in the air, loud as fuck. And we all drop to the ground and we freak the fuck out. We're like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Put that shit away. You know what I mean? All to say, that is a very common scenario. People being irresponsible with weapons and having alcohol in their system, And then that also escalating and turning into very unfortunate circumstances. So this situation, yeah, for sure. Very shocking. But something in me would be like, oh, okay, that's funny. Like, I can understand why those 2 old men were laughing. Like, okay, yeah, kids will be kids, right? Whatever. But imagine hearing kids will be kids after there's like a shootout between 2 groups of kids. I'm from the New York, New Jersey area and have seen firsthand how out of control sporting events can get. Guys, mostly getting drunk, vandalizing property, throwing cans and bottles, fighting, etc. So when a group of friends went to Germany for Oktoberfest some years ago, we also wanted to see a soccer game. So we got tickets to see Bayern Munich versus some other German team in what I think was a meaningful game. We went more for the experience versus being huge fans. Game is great. I think the score was 5-1, so lots of action. The energy in the stadium was undeniable. Fans singing, jumping around, yelling for the entire game. Game ends. Munich wins. Begin the march to the subway station. Virtually an entire stadium, it seemed, exited to go to the nearest subway stop. There are 4, maybe 5 cops standing at the entrance steps. Uh-oh. This is going to be a huge problem. Thousands of people, lots of them intoxicated, headed towards these 5 cops at this one exit. It's going to be a disaster. Some guy started pissing on a fence within their view. What are they doing? And then, as we watched nervously, the crowd reached the cops and just stopped. Everyone stopped. No one fought. The guys pissing finished up their business, zipped up, and joined the queue. Cops let enough people by to fill the first train, then the rest stopped, and so on and so forth until our group went. It was incredible. That scene could not happen in America. Maybe this was an anomaly, but picturing an event at MSG, there's an army of state troopers to keep order in addition to local cops, undercover cops, event security, etc. And brawls and things still erupt with regularity. This was amazing to us. We still talk about it years later. That was some respectful, organized, orderly shit. Yeah, actually, I was pretty impressed too. So the game I went to wasn't anything super crazy. It was like Mönchengladbach versus Bayern something. I can't remember the other team. But all I know is like the game was pretty cool. The fans were doing their thing. And then after the game, yeah, people were drunk and rowdy and whatnot. But it was fine. I mean, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, no, I know, and I have seen fans can get pretty crazy, and they have gotten pretty wild, like very wild. In fact, I reacted to some clips of fans going ballistic and, trashing the local area and fighting each other. Because, I mean, again, when you're riled up and, you got alcohol in your system and you're at a sporting event, it can only go down from there, right? But actually, I think in general, right, compared to America, I think there is a much higher respect for cops in general. Now, I'm not saying everybody loves cops out there. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that there is a higher level of respect for cops in Europe versus America. Like, you don't need a legion of cops to keep the peace throughout Europe in most cases. Now, in some cases, probably, but in most cases, nah. In America, shit, you could have a legion of cops and it still might not change the outcome of much. I thought it was pretty cool that this story had a positive ending, and that definitely is a what the fuck moment because, again, we're used to wild shit happening, wild stuff happening. So when things go right, you can genuinely enjoy yourself and there is no fear of someone being hurt or something going catastrophically wrong. That's a W. That's a W. So anyways, that's pretty much it for the video, guys. If you guys have any interesting stories from your own experiences, maybe having some WTF moments in the United States, or my fellow Americans having some WTF moments in Europe, or anybody for that matter that has traveled to Europe that does not reside there, that has had some WTF moments, please let me know in the comments down below, because I would love to hear your experience and how it differs from where you're from. I've had a lot of those experiences myself, and you'll hear them over the next however many years I decide to do YouTube.